Mr. Sameer Mehendale, who is the Associate Vice President, Packaging Development, Kraft Foods Inc. So with a huge round of applause, please welcome him on stage, a postgraduate in packaging technology from Indian Institute of Packaging. He has been serving the packaging industry in 1988. The Kraft Food, he is responsible for delivering the new product development through integrated portfolio management process. And with a career span of 24 years, ladies and gentlemen, yes, 24 years, he has been instrumental in bringing the new packaging format before the industry. So with a huge round of applause, we have Mr. Sameer Mehendale on stage. As we have the moderator on stage, now it's time to introduce the panelists. In this discussion, we have four panelists. So go by one. The first panelist is Mr. Bimal Lakhotia. Mr. Bimal Lakhotia is National Head, Packaging Development and Commercialization, Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages. With more than 14 years of experience with diversified packaging application, Mr. Lakhotia is spearheading the packaging development and commercialization function in Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages since April 2011. And he is the man who is responsible for beverage package performance across the supply chain. So with a huge round of applause, we have Mr. Lakhotia. Good morning, sir. Welcome. Next, let's move on to the next panelist. The next speaker we have on stage is Mr. Prabhuda Das Gupta, Consultant ITW India Limited. With over 33 years of professional experience in all the primary and the decorative packaging formats, Mr. Das is one of the most reputed packaging professionals in the industry. He has served Hindustan Unilever Limited for past 16 years and currently has the consultant for ITW India Limited. So with a huge round of applause, please welcome Mr. Das on stage. Moving further, the third panelist in this panel discussion, we have Mr. Karamveer Rehani. Karamveer Rehani, Automation Consultant, KVR Consultant, the postgraduate in electronics from Delhi University. Mr. Rehani gave 14 years of his career to HLL, now which is HUL, working in different units of the company in Calcutta, Haldwani and Mumbai. So with a huge round of applause, please welcome him on stage, Mr. Rehani. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. Last on the list on this discussion, we have Mr. Umesh Padmasari, who is the AGM OEM Marketing. Mr. Padmasari is a Bachelor in Engineering in Electronics with more than 18 years of experience in automation industry. He started his career as a maintenance engineer and now heading as an AGM in OEM marketing. So with a huge round of applause, please welcome him on stage. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome. And now may I request the moderator to please start the panel discussion. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today's first topic is packaging solutions. How can we really integrate and collaborate with each other? I think as it was shown in my introduction, almost 25 years I have been associated with this industry. Only in last 4-5 years, we are seeing that we are really growing now. As a country, most of the user industry is really growing. Last 6 years, we have been growing at 25% plus year on year. What does it mean? It means we have to create capacities. How we create capacities? By putting up plants, putting up factories, putting up new machines, new technologies, bringing automation, which was not there. But how all this will come? Because we have very short time, we have to catch up with the world, so time is limited. for that we're going to require a lot of integration and collaboration. So these panel members distinguished from various companies, they are there. I think let us hear them out. They will tell us some of the case studies where this has worked, where this has not worked. I also have some personal experiences. So whenever we have time, we can discuss that after the conference is over. Let us start with the panel study first. So I will request all of them to quote at least one case study where these things have been successful, where we tried a lot but it may not be that successful. But please do say that. We will have some learnings in that. So I hand it over to the panel members.
Well, good afternoon.
I have been an end user at a multinational company, and almost 15 years I have been on the side where I used to sort of face the challenge of the shop floor. We have been, I think, evolved, especially say in the Unilever Indian operation, where the markets were one side, the demand used to be there. But at the same time, the marketing friends, they used to throw challenge at the factory operations. We want to introduce a new product within the time limit, and generally the time limit used to be, we used to, inverted comma used to say, by yesterday. We want new format to be delivered onto the shop market shelves, and the time given to the manufacturing guy was very minimum. Machines, the kind of machine we used to have, the technology which used to be there was mostly mechanical, driven by the cams, no flexibility. Used to depend mostly onto the change parts, and then within the limited means what we used to have, we used to sort of deliver. Over the years, things have changed. The evolution of the marketing, the technology has taken a lot of, I think, a beat there. And today probably the kind of flexibility, the kind of, I think, the modularity which are there in the design is able to deliver. But has it kept pace with the marketeer's requirements? No. I know what is the experience of most of the audience here, but today I think the challenge at the manufacturing floor is still remain the same, with the magnitude and probably the severity must have slightly changed. The expectations that yes, you also have the sustainability, you also have the energy conservation, you also have the focus onto the minimum wastages. That has also got superimposed onto the probably yesterday's requirements. So some question what we have, do machines that actually are at the shop floor or given by the OEM, they actually deliver as per the template or the name tag they have. And when the machines, they are in tandem, if it is a unit operation and when you have multiple operations, which is very typical into any packing line, what happens to the OE? The number of units which are more means the OE keep on dropping. That means we need to really focus on line efficiency rather than on the machine efficiency. And this is exactly where the challenge is, because the asset productivity or the performance or the investment which is done at the shop floor will be actually measured by the overall line efficiency rather than the individual machine efficiency. And my experience, I say that yes, there is a lot of untapped capacity available to the industry where they can utilize this untapped or the efficiency which is getting wasted because of say lack of integration or maybe the poor coordination between the machines. And to improve on that, I mean the first thing, do the machines, are they able to communicate to each other? Or do they have say intelligence built in where if the fault is there or the stoppage is there, it can be diagnosed easily and then you can put the machine back into the production at the least possible time? do we have plug and pack solutions in the industry? Can I buy a machine from the OEM and then integrate onto my entire line? There will be very rarely, I think, any machine which can be adopted, maybe barring, I think, the today's context, if we say that yes, some of those robotic solutions which are available, they have been actually commoditized. Yes, you can maybe pick up from off the shelf and then integrate onto some kind of action. But when it comes to the basic functionality, whether it is a filling, capping, labeling, you need to do a lot of thinking when you need to integrate them onto the overall line. Calling for the collaboration, like when I am an end user, I am designing or looking for a line, then what I need to do as a user, I actually define my requirements. Then I sit with the OEM and tell him, look, boss, I need this kind of functionality. This is kind of a packaging size, this is kind of a packaging volume, and this is kind of the packaging shape. The machine is delivered to me, but then what are the performance requirements which I define? Yes, those numbers also get delivered. And then as an end user, I am also able to specify what kind of control system or what kind of sensors that should go into the machine, because if I am a large enterprise at multiple locations, I am also responsible for standardization. I think focus onto my inventory cost at the same time, the skill levels which are required at the operating units to maintain and sustain these machines. The OEM defines the machine logic, build it, and then finally, end user, he is the responsible for the line. Now, being the end user responsible for the line, the integration responsibility is to the end user, but can he do it alone? Does OEM give him the support? This is, I think, the biggest challenge, and then when it comes to the actual practicality, we actually get the support, say, from the technology supplier or the system integrator. So that's how I think the collaborative value addition takes place, and then we are able to get more out of the assets or from the investments. The issues are standard, I think, what we face from the supplier perspective or from the user perspective or from the technology solution providers. The solution lies, yes, we must follow the standards or the guidelines, which the OMIC is the one or the main, where we talk about, say, PACML, PAC tags, and standardization of the networks. And this whole discussion probably where we like to actually invite questions from the audience, participants here, that what kind of issues say, and then we have, say, a lot of case studies where actually starting from those basic old machines. I can cite the example from the soap lines, where we used to have, say, the line efficiency as low as maybe 50% to start with, And because of, say, the line integration, using the simple sensor tools to monitor the upstream and downstream performance of the stamper, plotter, and the packing machine, the three machines in series, we are able to improve on to up to 70% kind of a thing, And today, I think when we are talking about, say, designing the templates for the new integrated lines, we have gone on one step where we say, yes, when we buy the machine, these guidelines of the specifications are given to the OEMs and then taken, say, from the day one. That means the early engagement is the one which is required if you want to really get the good performance, say, from your lines. And the benefits, I think, all the stakeholders here, when they adopt to the standard, they adopt to the technology, they adopt to the early engagement. The end user, yes, he is a beneficiary. The OEM is a beneficiary because then his machines being standard has a more acceptability, not only the local markets, across the global kind of a thing. There is a reduced cost when the subsequent things are delivered. There is a less working or tinkering required at the software level or the interfacing issues. To sum it up, I think we need to have the markets and ample opportunities for all the stakeholders if we follow the standards and the guidelines. And the business pressures and the market pressures are actually driving us for the need for the integration here. The data is already available at the shop floor, but we need to basically handle the data, how to handle and how to integrate over a common platform and make the decisions for improving the performances. And the collaborative work is using the OEM and the other control suppliers, we should be able to take it forward. Thank you. So this is what I thought I'll share with you, my thoughts, and I like to say my other colleagues.
Imagine we develop a package such that the dimension of the package fit into a standard pallet size. There are global standards to a pallet size, 1.2 meters by 1 meter. Imagine I develop a package wherein I utilize the pallet to the maximum extent. What is the benefit that I get? I utilize the horizontal space, I utilize the vertical space. In turn, the benefit as an end producer, we utilize the floor space to the maximum possible. We utilize the transit conditions to the maximum possible. Over the truck, we utilize the floor space to the maximum possible. When we take it to our logistic partners, the utilization is maximum till the time it hits the end consumer. If we have to extend this integration further, imagine I open my supplier as well, wherein the same pallet size is used by the supplier to bring in the raw material or the packaging material into my plant. It has its inherent benefits also. Imagine there's no rattling in transit, there is no transportation damages, etc. A win-win proposition across the value chain for all stakeholders. I mean, this is precisely the discussion topic for this panel, wherein we are saying how through packaging integration and collaboration we can maximize the benefit across this value chain. And when I say value chain, right, starting from my supplier, at the production shop floor, during transit, logistics, trade, meeting the end consumers. I drive a complete holistic value. So I thought rather than taking you through the slide, let me relate this with an example. Why do we need integration or collaboration for that matter? There are strategic needs, there are operational needs. Strategic needs as in there's a competitive environment, there is competition all across, global economics are growing, the world is shortening up, the life cycle of an innovation is coming down. Imagine 10 years back or 20 years back, there used to be one innovation. Television was invented, and that was a big innovation which sustained for 10 years, 20 years. Today, an iPhone comes in, and in 6 months flat, there is a new version. There is a competition coming in. So what one needs to innovate is more from a value chain perspective, from an efficiency perspective, from a throughput perspective, wherein it gets a competitive advantage. It gives you an edge over others in the marketplace. There is a growing demand of packaging variations, new concepts, new propositions, all driven through efficiencies. So as a manufacturer close to an end user, more than innovation, what we look at is integration, ensuring maximizing effective efficiencies. There are a lot of operational benefit that we get out of this integration, like standardized packaging material. As my predecessor said, I have an old generation machine, I have a new generation machine, and there is the same packaging material having a particular tolerance limit. How do I ensure the same packaging material with the same tolerance limit works on the old generation equipment as well as the new generation equipment? How do I have maximum interchangeability or flexibility onto my packing lines? A small pack today, a bigger pack tomorrow. How do I automate or make the machines communicate between each other? Ensuring that right from input material that gets into our line till the final product pack that comes out of the line, there is a seamless integration. So these are a couple of benefits, and if I have to sum that up, it's like the objective of integration is to create these three big words: seamless, synchronized, and inclusive value chain. Very broad terms, but believe me, gives a lot of value to today's generation of business. And ensuring process design which allows the best possible material flow as well as the end delivery. Of course, in short of time, I'll not take you further. There are different frameworks, and what in Coke world we call it as is connect, collaborate, and reapply. I'm sure when we have this panel discussion, we'll take it forward. Oh, I thought I finished my 5 minutes. Anyway, coming back to the framework, if I'm talking of connect, collaborate, and reapply, there are various tools, various methodologies by which one can work on. For example, was what Dr. Narayan was talking about Coke plant bottle. Believe me, it is one of the best examples of integration. It is the best example of collaboration across the value chain. Imagine you have somebody like a professor. Imagine you have a resin manufacturer. Imagine you have research scientists. You have biggies like Reliances or Indorama in this case. You have end users or preform manufacturers. You have the brand like Coke. And then what we deliver is what we call it as a plant bottle. So there are different frameworks by which one can collaborate, communicate, and have maximized the benefits. The tool that we follow is you start interacting and looking at strengths of each other, not looking at opportunity or areas of each other. Convert a win-lose situation into a win-win situation, thereby reinforcing the partnership that one can bring in between a packaging supplier, between the OEM, between the end user, delivering that one common end objective. Different ways of developing the capabilities across this chain. Managing this development again and again reiterating Dr. Narayan, the way you validate and verify. So an objective laid down, partnership carried out, we continuously keep on validating and verifying the end objectives. End of the day, we deliver success. So that's the broad framework that we follow here. I'm sure when we have the panel discussion, we can take this forward.
What will be missing? Packaging, and the end user challenges and OEM in case this is a perfect agenda, so to take it forward and vertical in the end of the day summary part of it. So when we have been talking about the packaging is precisely, it's a pool of machines. It's irrespective of the user, whether it's the pharmaceutical or it is the personal care products or it's the home care products, irrespective or it's the cigarette packaging or the tobacco manufacturing process. So it's a lots of packaging. It's a primary packaging and the secondary packaging and the other equipment, so labeling, case packer and the so-called. This is a typical production line or material flow which usually happens in any of the industry. So to begin with, here I am starting a code which was just recently published in the Economic Times on the 23rd November by the CEO of Unilever, Paul Polman. So where in the learnings from India, where the low price products and the smaller package or sachet is getting the acceptance in the European market. So where the poverty has extended to the local economies. See, that really gives a feel like in India, whether it's a big nano car or it's a small sachet, it's really showcasing the strength to the world. So we have the knowledge, we have the expertise, and we can definitely do it. So I want to take this thought forward and to keep it in your mind. So this is the packaging, what we have been speaking out and how the technology has been helping out to make it happen. So when we have been speaking of end user challenges, as Mr. Rehami and even Mr. Lakholi has also pointed out, the delivery time, because it is always yesterday for the user, so the machine has to be available and the production is the first and foremost challenge for him. And the machine footprint science, because economically and the space and the other constraints which also increases the cost of the production. Commissioning time, of course, it is again linked with the delivery time. The uptime of the machine should be much faster and the production should be on the flow. Of course, the machine flexibility, here the machine flexibility in terms of the package, the format size, and you can change the pack length also. So reduction in cost, that is another prime importance area from the end user point of view. Reduction in cost, of course, the reduction in wastage of the material, increased performance, so that is nothing but we are talking about the efficiency part of it, where this will give the production on a better higher rate and the open architecture. So this is the point which will be touched upon. Just I want to, right now I will not touch upon on this point too much, but as we move forward, so this is a part which will elaborate more further on open architecture. So and the machine, the downtime. So as machine downtime is less, of course, the rest of the factor will come into the picture, the efficiency, production time, and so on and so forth. So this is from the end user perspective. Since we initiated the dialogue with the end user perspective, I also want to touch upon the OEM part of it and how it has been taken forward. So what are the OEM challenges in terms of it? The first and foremost is the end user acceptance, because they have their acceptance levels in terms of the inventory, in terms of the structure, in terms of the hardware, in terms of the platform, the project and life cycle cost, reduction in cost, of course, the foremost priority for the OEM point of view, and the scalable automation system. So moving forward, if there are any changes or any structure happens in the machine, the system should be in a position to take care of it. It shouldn't happen that we have to change the entire structure of the system. Again, the support mechanism should be in place for the OEM part of it, so this is the foremost priority for the OEM, and of course this is applicable to the end user also, because they look the extended support as from the supplier point of view, the technology supplier. And increased performance, this is the inevitable norms for either OEM or the end user, but this is the norms. So this is what has been moving forward. Earlier, what we have been talking of in the era of a year back, or to 5-6 years back. So when we have been talking of the PLC part of it, the motion parts are different. So the trend has been happening where the PLC and the motion parts are getting integrated, and the people are more looking forward from the open architecture. That is why I am saying the open architecture, which will be what we have been speaking in terms of the OMAC and all. So this is the architecture where people are moving on that, the motion control platform. So it can take care of the motion platform, it can take it you to the vertical integration part of it, so that in future. But anyway, we have a certain slides which will elaborate further on this topic. So this is the generation what we have been looking into it. So right from moving different PLC and the different motion controllers, we are going for a synchronized kind of things where PLC and the motion controller are on a common platform. So any typical packaging line, whether it's ointment or tobacco, so we have the final process product available, and then we have the filling, the cartoning, and the wear and the case packer. This is the usual production flow. So what are the challenges during line integration? If you just recollect what Mr. Rehan is, the different suppliers with the different architecture, then standardization, non-standardization of the machine software. If you remove the word non, then we have the standardization of the machine structure, because the different suppliers will have different technology, different platforms, and then the integration of machine is a real challenge. And possibility of performance related issues, and then the vertical integration becomes a challenging, and the ownership is a big challenge. Then who is the responsible? Either the OEM or the supplier or the end user. So here I am just putting a case study, a bit of it, where we are talking about tube filling and cartoning. So these are the two different machines. Practically speaking, if you look at in terms of the architecture point of view, I'm just taking it to a bit further on this. So you have a different PLC which can be taking care of your tube filling part of it, which is connected to the drives, to the motion part of it, the encoder part of it, and you have a HMI, and you have a PLC connected with the cartoning part of it. Again, you have a PLC, but here the integration which is happening is we are using a media of communication, but there could be a further media, a better media of communication which will happen when we are speaking in terms of a generation 3 kind of architecture, the motion or the single platform. So the benefits of this architecture, if we recollect here, So here, if you look at it, we are using a media of kind of communication over here, so that at least two of the PLC are speaking to each other and getting an exchange of media is available. So which can correlate the data, and the data is available to the vertical integration, also called to the Ethernet connectivity, to take it up to the SCADA system. So the benefits here to Modbus, as I said, the adaptability because of the connectivity is available. Then you have a third party connectivity is also available because you have the open media, open architecture, communication is available. The gaps what we have been speaking of in terms of both the machines are different, so no master set point is available, so both are two different. I just move it faster. So this is what I have been looking at. So whether you have a motion bus or whether it's irrespective of the manufacturer, but we have been speaking in terms of the device, whether it's Profibus or Ethernet, the supplier should be available. You have the connectivity, you have the MIS is also available, so we can take it forward. So this is going to be architecture rather than having a two different hardware. We have a common hardware to take it forward. So we can connect it to the SCADA and to the MIS world. Again, this is a small pitch which I want to touch upon, which is the template and the function blocks which are available, which gives it the precisely higher productivity in terms of, because the commissioning time is less. Here, the function blocks are nothing but the application function blocks, whether it's a flow wrap or the case packer, the ready-made templates are available. So the OEM or the user can definitely make a use of it. The uptime of the machine will be much faster, production and so on. It will increase the performance of the machines. So the development, data flexibility and better programming part of it. Again, just to touch upon PackML, so which will be a part of it, which can be taken care here. B, it defines the machine status and the machine conditions on the back tag platforms. So vertical integration, so which you can take it forward since we have the platform available, whether irrespective whether it is a motion or the network device network connectivity. So you can definitely integrate your vertical platform on the whether it's a Circos bus or it's a OMAC or it's a wine fence tank for food and beverage, it can be taken care. So this is the summary from my point of view. This is my opinion. So customer demand will drive the integration part of it. Customer is the key, user is the key. Innovation, cost reduction, scalability, increased performance, ease of programming, and trading and support. So these are the key summaries as a supplier point of view, which will give a confidence, because end of the day, suppliers and the OEMs and the end users, somewhere they should have the convergence to come on the same platform and to have the open architectures to benefit in terms of the user perspective also, and to the OEM and of course to the industry. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Say, though I have a presentation ready, but I won't give you that presentation. I'd rather tell you a story. And some of the stories, they don't need pictures. So the story perhaps which I give you will cheer you up a bit, because it's a cup, because I selected for that story a subject which is close to your heart and which cheers you. Yes, perhaps you guessed it, it's a cup that cheers. It's about tea. The story of tea. Now, this is based on my experience when I spent around a decade for packaging of tea. Packaging of tea, gentlemen, starts with, of course, with the tea as it's grown in the tea gardens. And then it's plucked, it's processed, and from there starts the story of packaging of tea. The first pack on which it goes is basically a jute bag. A jute bag with a polyethylene liner, and it is stitched. So when you go to a auction house, you buy tea packed in jute bags with a polyliner stitched. Tea is also exported from India in multiple paper sacks. There's a foil there, so you need to be too happy about it, but it is also not sealed, it's tucked in. And there, it lies there at the godowns of the tea marketeers for around 4 to 5 months. And then it's blended according to the market choice, sent to the factories, put into nice beautiful packs which has metallized polyester, which has foil, which has paper, and it reaches you. Now, so this is how the business was run. Now, at a point in time, there were complaints from some of my colleagues who were tea tasters that tea isn't tasting the same what was there before and what is after the storage, even before they are packed. So what they were saying is that liquor value is dropping.
Liquor value is one composite value. It's like a BSE index. If the index drops, then you say that the share market is going down. So something like this, there are similar to there are say 50 shares in Nifty. So similarly, there will be some 30 attributes which go into characterizing a tea. Now they were saying that some of it's not right, some of it's going down. I don't know what's happening, and at the makeup, they have to add costly tea, and the cost of tea went up. We did some simple exercise. We found out that actually what goes wrong in a tea, in black tea leaves. We found that it absorbs moisture, the first thing is. Please remember that your basic packs, they were stitched, so moisture went in. Second, we also found out we did I used to work in a R&D organization, so we did HPLC, found out what were the peaks and what you keep, when you kept at. Now we found that there were 30 different new peaks which were appearing there. We analyzed it, they appeared to be like oxidation products. So obviously oxidation was happening, so you had to stop oxidation. So that was the beginning of the story, beginning of a challenge for packaging. Then we did a couple of things. I'll not go into the detail because the time is short. Well, we developed a packaging which was vacuum packaging, worked out a structure, worked out a bag, worked out a vacuum packaging machine, worked out a corrugated box to keep it. And it was challenge all the way. How do you open it? That the man at the godown said that he has to open up the entire bag. There were in the parallel studies done, which were done with Reliance and Toklai and all that. They said yes, on polypropylene the tea keeps much better because of the moisture part was better. But then what about aroma and all that? So aroma was connected with oxygen, and then there was no machine to pack 20 kilo vacuum packs. So a 20 kilo vacuum pack was was developed. Machine was slow, so we developed a 2-chamber one. Then the bag was not right. We found that even the adhesive laminated structures gave away. We did a thermal lamination. We did a structures which were K-sealed. We developed corrugated boxes. At the end of it, the story at this ends that this is the happy ending story. The tea remained good even after 4 or 5 months. The liquor value did not drop. The customer in the end got a good tea. The person who used to manage the tea packaging, he was happy because he was getting good tea to pack in. The man who was managing the warehousing, he was happy because the tea didn't waste. The farmers got a good price. So if you talk about a value chain, it should start from where it begins and finish the end of the story, perhaps in your cup. And this all happened because people came together, people who were in tea tasters, people who were packaging people like me, people who were machine manufacturers, and people who were customers. This is one story. And then we discovered things. At what moisture content it absorbed. Can we do a system in which the moisture content itself will go down, so you won't need this valuable packaging? How it can be handled, and things like this, which perhaps I'll tell you another day, another story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dada. What we have been hearing, I think every industry knows. Sorry, are you able to hear? Yeah, every industry knows what is required. Yes, integration is required, collaboration is required. Everyone sitting here is so experienced that they know. The only question is then why it is not happening. So can we throw some light on what to do and how to do? You will start with the suppliers first.
Practically speaking, supplier is always, this is only an open perspective which is I am putting forward, because every supplier anyway, end of the day, the business, how the business comes to the company, and because he has a target and definitely he has to show his performance also. So, but keeping aside that platform, but definitely that's a point wherein the integration part of it is usually missing. But here I want to have a perspective over here, because
somewhere down the line, we should have a platform wherein the supplier, the OEM, and the end user should come on a common platform, and the integration chain becomes then a strength in the providing a solution, providing an integration. Then lots of things can happen on to take it forward. The reason being why I'm telling you, every supplier is looking from the perspective of a particular job or particular applications in terms of the packaging, say filling machine. So he will look at only from the perspective of say filling machine. If I look at from the user perspective side, because he always look at from the process part of it, okay, the process is the main priority because once process is clear, then this is a part of the finished products, and then he is categorizing in terms of the finished product. So who is the best OEM or the best machine manufacturer out of it, and then let's tag it to it and take it forward. So here is the catch where we've been looking at. So I think there has to be a common platform which end user, the OEM, and the supplier should come on a platform, either it in terms of a technology or in terms of this kind of open arena where we can definitely have discussions and we can take it forward on this.
Hello, yeah. Say, I'd like to add to what just has been said. One thing which I have always missed it, whether as a part of equipment supply now or when we were users, is a very clearly written brief. Say, and a very clearly written brief of what the process was, what was the product, what was expected, and say, everybody thinks that, writing a brief is a waste of time. But somebody told me that if you ask just a few questions, this is what, this is why, this is when, and this is how, and of course, lastly, this is how much. So if you do this, then I think the brief is complete, and of course, it gives the something to look at the picture more holistically and think about other aspects which perhaps you would not have thought if the entire thing would have been based on a discussion or a planned visit.
I'll just add on to this a very simple saying. When do we have food? We have food when we are hungry. So how do you state that I am hungry? It's with a brief. I'll just add this with two examples. An example close to my heart, a PET bottle. For a business like us, wherein we blow our own bottles, we do the filling, we do the capping, we do the labeling, end-of-line packaging, etc. Some intelligent person on this earth would have discovered air conveying mechanism. Imagine you have a 350 ml to 2.25 liters, wherein the bottle diameter and dimensions would change. It will take 6 to 7 days to change over a particular line because you will have different dimensions of package. So some intelligent person would have discovered or collaborated along with the packaging suppliers and machine manufacturers, wherein a bottle can be held under the neck. So the bottle dimensions could be different, bottle contours could be different. Nothing changes on the conveying mechanism and stopping in communication between the different packaging machines. A contradictory example to this is biscuit packaging. One packaging format, a horizontal flow wrap, wherein both machine manufacturers as well as packaging manufacturers are even struggling today. Biscuits are packed wherein a stack length is measured and a flow rack pack is defined. Wherein when it is sold as grammages. A 100-gram pack or a 200-gram pack. Packaging suppliers have developed state-of-art technology in terms of thermoforming, ensuring there is no breakage of product, etc. But then there is no packaging equipment wherein a tray packing can be done automatically. It is still the age-old mechanism wherein manual labor has to be utilized to do tray packing of biscuits, despite packing tons of biscuits. So it brings back to the same statement wherein in case the brief or the need state is clearly articulated and there is a passion between this entire group, there is a solution there.
I think there is a very clear indication of, say, the challenge between the risk and the rewards. If you see from the end user perspective, as I said earlier, I want to design a machine. I have given a brief. I know what exactly I want. But then, does it stay same during the entire life cycle of the machine? Because the market demands are changing so much. My marketer friend doesn't understand the capability or the limitation of the machine. He only expects this, it has to be delivered. There's a guy sitting in the finance department. He says, by reducing the GSM or the paper which goes into the packing, I'll save crores of rupees for the company, for the tonnages, and the volume what we have for the projected for the year. But does he know that by reducing the grammages, what happens to the efficiency of the machine? And then, as engineers on the shop floor, perhaps many times I think we have lacked that courage to tell these guys to shut up. If you want, this only will be delivered, whether you take it or not. But probably we start looking for the avenues elsewhere. We'll do something, some technique for some time, and then we'll have excuses. Engagement with the OEM, when these kind of situations are there to tide over the problems and meeting the planned challenges, the OEM says, yes, I am willing to put the money, but then who's going to pay for it? Like Das Gupta said, how much? The maintenance engineer doesn't have that kind of a budget. Many times these kind of allocations are not done by the corporate headquarters. Then what to do? Again, it becomes more like I'll show a carrot. Yes, I am willing to buy a new machine. Probably you are able to demonstrate this concept onto my old machine. Sometimes it is successful, sometimes it is not. But then I think as a team, people who are all the stakeholders, in my opinion, I think there has to be a win-win situation for everyone. Only then this can move forward and we can have some kind of a sanity to the madness which is there prevalent generally into the manufacturing when the pressures are there. And that can only happen when we start looking at probably I think I said the brief, the specifications, the templates which are there. And second is also a commitment after assigning a price or agreeing on a price. Because today, I think the earlier days, we could get many things being a big company in good faith. But probably I think as we move forward in time, even the OEM need to sort of get, so he is also like a part of the organization. I also seen like maybe some of the OEMs today, being an advisor to them, I know how the system works, that probably what is needed to be very fair on all the sides, and that's how we can take it forward. Yes, time and money needed, you can solve any problem. But both are to be assigned and to be given and agreed with a defined set deliverables.
I think what we have to deliver, we have done brief and everything. But I think the real question is still slightly beyond that. He said we need open forum where you can openly discuss these requirements. Because many times the suppliers say when you are called into office, we are already under pressure. There is also pressure from price, delivery, all those things. So actually everybody is looking at some forum. Like I'll tell you, I wanted to do one cost reduction exercise. Going from on a vertical form fill seal, we wanted to do lap seal. Now there is not one supplier in India who can actually provide lap seal. I am saying that there might be people here, but what has gone lacking? I don't have access to them. They don't know that is my requirement. Because there is a barrier there which needs to be broken. What is that barrier? Because there is no forum, no system, the entity has to come. So I think the challenge comes back to all of us, everybody sitting here along with us. How do we create such forum and will that help? So I'll request panel members to say in 2 or 3 sentences whether yes, no and some idea. Then we'll throw it open to audience also.
I think we should have such kind of forum available. In fact, a forum or it's a communication media because there are lots of magazines which have been published on like Backward or so many are available. So which can definitely speak on this kind of issues, challenges coming across. So that is another media where we can definitely speak on our issues, challenges and the technology which has been happening. And we can take it forward on such forums, and I think that is the best way out for media from my side.
Probably what I feel is that, today, if people want to share information with the problem they have, I am by part of the organization, I'll be constrained to share this to outside world. That's the biggest, I think, the barrier I have. What do? I'm sharing my problem with my OEM. I'm sharing my problem with my system integrator for seeking a solution. And when I get a solution, I think, yes, I have done a job, great job. And if I share this solution to the outside world, I lose my competitiveness. That's the challenge I think internally I have. So in my opinion, probably I think we need to have some kind of a neutral platform where I think the development which are done, which are not, say, intellectually proprietary or anything, can be talked about, shared about, and then people can learn from that. And today I think when you talk about, say, technology per se, last 15 years I have been engaged with adopting, say, the OMAC, the PACML guidelines and engaging with the OEMs in the country, asking them to adopt this. We have been able to successful with some, not so successful many. The question again comes, he says, what is in store for me if I adopt to this? But if I am buying a machine, I am able to engage early and tell him, boss, change this, adopt the new standard, new guidelines, it is done. Then he also realized after doing this, since these guidelines are, say, common, prevalent, acceptable to all, so are the other, technical guidelines, like maybe in terms of, say, the communication network standard. What kind of network standard should be adopted while the machines communicate their parameters upstream, downstream, or on the common network? Ethernet, Profibus, or whatever it is there, or what kind of, the protocols which need to be adopted. And these are, I think, two essential things which are there, like having the guidelines for the OMAC and the communication protocols. These are open, can be adopted, and then as an end user, as an OEM, if people say yes, that's the way forward, that is going to help. And that's my opinion.
So perfectly second with the group here. 3 adjectives, both sides, whether a supplier or a OEM, of being more open or encouraging openness, building more trust and confidence for the common end objective. Once both the partners know what is in store for him, believe me, success is there.
Very quickly, let me tell you another story. When Mr. Rehani was saying, I was reminded of it. Long back, when soap changed from paper to polyester paper, there are a lot of wastages. And I was a converter then, and I felt that it was very difficult for me to convey the message that if you don't do this, the paper will curdle, the paper will not run on machine, the paper will slip, etc., and all that. The best way, I remember, was once we took a group of our people to meet to Hindustan Lever. I was not part of Hindustan Lever then, and make them talk and see some presentation to understand that what was actually the problem, which even a slight amount of curdle or difference in slip or a problem in winding happened into the productivity, and then they became aware. Similar thing, I think at that time it was also done, if I remember correctly, producing manuals at great length of each part, what its role was there to make it people understand. So there's a lot of good things I think which were once done and which had made a success. I think still they're being done. So the good practices or the industry practices, I think if we carry it along. I remember also with the flow wrappers, typically the biscuits when they did it with multi-pack and all that. So they all those things which were there, which it took trials with Britannia and all that. So when it was a combination of the material manufacturer, machine manufacturer, and the machine people who ran the machine, it gave us some quite good results as far as the installation of new machinery was concerned. So some of these things, some good practices in the industry, I think need to be continued further.
I have a bit of a different thought process over here. So when, as Mr. Rehani said, there are some challenges which are coming across, and of course, because challenge gives us the next position ahead against the competition, but that's the rule of the game. But if you look at, suppose, even though there is a financial aspect which also comes into the picture, but end of the day, it is the production and the efficiency and the overall business which we have been driving as a new product or new market segments. But that's the game which we have to play, and that's the challenge which either the OEM somewhere down the line he has to accept it and take it forward. And as a OEM plus supplier, definitely can add a value to such kind of solutions. Irrespective, because it's the technology, we are not irrespective of the copying a machine, because copying a machine doesn't serve the purpose. He can do it for one or two, but the knowledge behind it, the technology behind it remains with the user, so which definitely can be protected. This is from my perspective.
Yes, I agree that yes, tomorrow, probably if we had to take this forward, technology is going to be the big enabler. We adopt the technology. There are certain things the OEMs have which is proprietary to them, But the technology we are talking is doesn't touch the proprietary part of their business. It only talks about sharing the information related to the performance or the state of the machine to the upstream, downstream, or to the operator. Also thrown in some of the diagnostic features which are there, which can be built into the algorithm if the machine stops and it communicates to the outside world for what reason it has stopped. There could be need for maybe some additional sensors into the design of the machine, which can be provided in the early stages, whether it could be related to the safety, performance, tolerances of the material, the packing material. If that is taken care of, then you see the machine communication part using the standard, using the technology onto the network which are standard. And lastly, the most important thing is, as you go high-tech onto the machine technology level, the biggest challenge the end user has is, does he have the skills in-house to maintain them or support them? Yes, we focus, we invest into the reliability, but then yes, fortunately I think the technology also provides an answer to this. Most of the machines today with a virtual network connectivity through the internet, they can be accessed by the OEM and support can be given wherever, whichever part of the world you are, provided you have the internet connection available. So I think, in my opinion, technology is going to be the great driver to take this forward. Any questions from the audience, please? Yeah.
Yeah, it is not only the question but the comment which Mr. the moderator Samir has put for the point to both suppliers and.
I have one more point to bring here. See, when we talk about buying a machine, we always talk about OE efficiency, wastage. We are not talking about innovations. See, if you want to bring sustainability in long term, we will have to bring innovations. Like I gave one example of lap seal. It saves 7% of laminate straight away. It does not compromise on quality anywhere. But there is nothing happening. Similarly, I'll tell you, we have gone ahead with monolayer films. Now the day you will try a monolayer film on your machines, it simply doesn't work. We have made, after lot of struggle, to make it run for one product. And how much time we had to spend after the supplier to make that happen. What we are doing now, before even purchasing the machine, now we are ourselves internally organizing ourselves better. We are saying, let us understand what we are going to do in next 5 years. Then call the machinery suppliers and tell them this will be my requirements after 3 years, 5 years. So give us a machine which will able to adapt to that. Today I am glad to inform you this. James, we have started with this monolayer structure. It has won even the World Star Award this time. Only yesterday I came to know about it. So unless and until this type of innovations don't happen, and if the machinery suppliers, if they don't take interest, nothing will happen. So this is one more point I'll just like to throw open.
What is an ideal machine? What is an ideal machine, packing machine?
The ideal machine should be customized to the particular user need. I mean, that is the point, what exactly I wanted to convey here. I'm with Castrol, heading packaging development. So, recently, for last couple of years, we are venturing for upgradation of our plants.
Doing it, in isolation with their format, which is the world best machine, what is the efficiency level, what is the speed, etc., etc. And finally, at the end of the day, that machine worth 14 crores, that engineer asking me for my machine to run, you have to change the following changes in your pack. And I said, sorry, you make your machine change to suit my pack. So, what I mean to say that, exactly when we do, whether the pack is ideal, or the machine is ideal, or the handling is ideal, so it has to be approached holistically in a structured way. And as of today, many of us, we work in isolations based on our respective KPIs. Procurement, their KPI cost reduction. So at the end of the day, no matter they will show at the end of the year this much millions we have saved. But cost saved, it does not the basic cost. It has to be examined, it has to be calculated about the total cost. So if you see the total cost, finally you will see bottom line you are the loser. So that way, I personally feel to have a holistic approach of the value chain, every stakeholder, before taking a decision, I will agree with Samir that we should call the OEM. Yeah, this is what exactly we are as of today. These are our pack variables. This is our aspiration for immediately. Then our aspiration going forward, 5 years down the line, is A, B, C, D. That way. Another thrust I got, when I made a change on that particular of our pack, he has charged a bomb. He said, no, I have not been told that 2 years down the line you will be expecting my machine to run on this line. So you'll have to pay, and that is almost 50% of the machine cost. So naturally I have to lie low. So okay, whatever pack you are having, go ahead. So I believe that approach should be slightly more structured way, taking all the stakeholders on the same platform, hear from each and every, and then then we take a conscious decision, which is ideal machine, which is ideal pack, which is our ideal specification, and so on and so forth. That's what I feel based on my experience in Castrol.
I agree, and there cannot be any second opinion. Any decision in the corporate has to be as if it is a full project itself. Buying a packing machine while the stakeholders are there. My experience is that when I think somebody, my colleague said, specifications should be written in the beginning. What is the deliverable? Do you have a person who will write a specification of a packing machine completely in-house? Invariably, it is not there. You actually then engage with the OEM, do you also engage with the system integrator? But then engagement is not open. It is generally asked in a very clandestine manner. Boss, I want to buy a machine. What should be the machine specification like? As a user, I can define, yes, I am going to pack soap 200 units per minute. The size of the soap can, the grammage can change from 50 grams to maybe 150 grams based on the market needs. The changeover time I define should not be more than 4 hours. You need to give me those. The rejection of the maybe the packing material will not be more than 1%. The packing material specification is going to be so much. And the last and most important thing is that yes, what kind of information the machine displays. This is generally not displayed. This is what the machine designer, whatever comes to his mind by the experience of the previous experiences, he is going to display. But then today, the need for the information which actually helps you take the decision is much more. Are the machines TPM enabled? We keep on running Kaizens, we keep on running TPM, we keep on running Six Sigma on the shop floor to improve the performance of the line. But have you ever thought that these things we take back to the OEM and tell him right from the day one, I want the machine to be totally TPM enabled? When it is there on the shop floor, it will tell me at what speed, what efficiency it is running. Why do I have to put maybe a battalion of people to collate the data? And this is where exactly the fudging starts. The data being manual cannot be relied. People use it as a tool to take advantage of it. And this is a real life situation in most of the industry. But then it takes courage to admit it.
But I feel, the OEM also holds a lot of responsibility to help the customer. As because customer with his limited knowledge, suppose at the end of the day we are oil people. Now we want a machine which will give the higher productivity, higher efficiency and all. So if a world top liner, front line machine people, they come and we say these are our packs. But since he is supplying the machine across the world with various industries, he should suggest the customer, they see maybe tomorrow you may require this. So I would suggest if you say to be confined to this thing, we are okay. But I would suggest you, why don't you have a flexibility of this type? I will tell you a simple element of that particular machine that is automated, that BOPP tape sealer. We know that it comes in normally 3 standard with one is 48, one is 60 and one is 72. So we had some problem. I thought that let us make it 60. Then when I went to the line, to my utter surprise, that I have found that supplier has given only 48. I said, boss, it is by default it comes all the 3 variables. It is a question of simple roller. Then manufacturer said, no, it will take 2 months. It will come from Malaysia or Thailand or something like that. I said, forget it, let it be 40. So what I'm saying, the OEM himself should have suggested what my projective or maintenance team, engineering team may not know. And incidentally, I was also not involved. he should have said, yes, see, today you are using 48 weight, some people are using 60 also, some people are 72 also. And this does not cost much, you have these 3 spares with you. But he has not given that. When you are asking for it extra, he is charging a bomb and an abnormal time, lead time. So, OEM also has to, take a role to educate the customer. I mean, so I'll suggest, put forward suggestions. Okay, this is your requirement. Maybe tomorrow going forward you may require this also, then you will require to invest again. So why don't you have the flexibility right now, considering coming next year, coming 5 years down the line. So OEM does have, I believe, a lot of, if he's a really good OEM, he does have a good responsibility.
Yeah.
100% second with you. Just a point of caution here, as Mr. Das Gupta said earlier, in case the brief is well defined, probably one will not come under such situation. Imagine, since you're talking of Castrol, you have your marketer which comes back to you that you had installed a line for a 1 liter pack 3 years back, and tomorrow you need to get me a 500 ml pack. Since that was not part of that brief, you cannot give him that assurance. Of course, one can give it a shot to try if in the existing infrastructure you can get a 500 ml pack also, wherein the original machine was designed for 1 liter. So it's actually the owner's line on both the partners, it's the OEM as well as the end user.
Yeah.
To reinforce this onus, the more robust the brief is, the better collaboration that has happened between the OEM and the brief definer, the better is the
Right.
I'll just add on one thing, OEM is also part of the enterprise business. While we are always willing to penalize them for the short supplies, non-compliances and other thing, but do we reward them by bonuses when they exceed the targets?
I'll have to check up and come back.
No, I'm making a point, I mean, it has to be both ways. It cannot be just one way. I think if you adopt this kind of a thing, probably you see things, the entire scenario changing. And then yes, you must choose the OEM right in the beginning with caution, with a lot of, survey feedback or what are the assessment process you have. And then trust them. No matter what whomsoever you choose, will not be perfect. There will be certain shortcomings. But then you need to trust, you also need to invest time. They're like partners. They're no like competitors or suppliers. Once a term of reference has been signed, you're on the same side. And as a team, we need to work forward.
Yeah, actually it's but they are telling that it is something sort of something blame or like that. I feel so. As a OEM, there should be. Sorry.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Pradeep. We are the manufacturer of packaging machines actually. Most of the cases there is nothing a defined URS, that's user requirement sheet, and there is nothing process called FAT, that is something factory acceptance test. Mainly, most of the end users are not involving the whole faculty from the machine operator and up to the project manager. There is something gaps in between. Who are the end user, actual machine operators? We have to understand them also. What's their technicality? What's their machine adaptability? What kind of machine they can adapt, or what kind of operator we have to put on that machine. Basically, there is a huge gap in this. Again, the thing is that there is no defined URS. What the current requirement, what will be the requirement for next year or another 3 years, 5 years, nothing is defined. Just we want a machine. If some OEM or machine supplier asks what speed you require, no, we don't know much more, you suggest us. Then machine arrived and then the requirement changed. Now suppose say machine took 400 packs per minute, but now some requirement generates that 200 packs per minute. Machine manufacturer or machine is nothing, something a miracle which can change from 100 to 200. It's not. It's something predefined process from the designing, from the hardware selection and from the designing of mechanism and lot many things. So these changes and all that should after certain level it's really not possible. So there should be from end user level there should be something called defined URS which can really specify what's the actual requirement of current and in coming future. Then after that there should be something called a FAT. This is FAT, factory acceptance, is something a tedious, what we can say, a process. Many of the, what my experience says, many of the end users from MNC companies also don't like this process because they have to check the machine as per the URS, and checking the machine is many times far difficult to enter, to see the makes, what is written in the URS, what the hardware selection has done in URS, what is actually used, and what kind of passwords, what level of programming, what level of diagnostics, what level of communication, and it's something feeling tedious and okay, that's it is not taken that serious. And all these situations and all these things happen because of this. We are doing laziness or we are not taking so seriously these two things. What I feel that if we take these two things seriously, the major 90% or more than the problems will be definitely resolved. Many times, I will give one example, just many times people come and just brought, say, suppose a simple form fill seal machine to pack a pillow bag. Certainly something market trend changed and they want to pack into stand-up pouch with zipper, and the demand starts that no, in the same machine it should be. We don't want to invest on another machine, or we want to test the market, so we don't want to invest on the machine. Now the machines what is taken and what is expectations, it's east and west, or it's huge. So there is some technical limitations are there, and many of the times, as he said, we are oil people, we don't know that machine should do this thing. But really there are huge technical difficulties and huge technical limitations also, that such kind of expectations can't be fulfilled. So my point of view is that there should be a defined URS and there should be a FAT process while buying or while deciding on each and every machine.
No, with due respect, I will tell you one thing. To my knowledge, I have not seen any customer will be having that much of limitation on the technicality by saying we are the oil people. I mean to say that you are the authority you are the specialized of this thing. This is our requirement. If you have got anything in mind to improve our requirement, that you can suggest. That's what I was saying, my intention was. But if any customer, initially they are asking for form fill machine, and after that they said no, in the form fill machine, it has to be, stand-up pouch has to be filled. I don't think that particular company has got any engineer in that company. So I would suggest you don't handle with those customers.
Hello, I would like to add one thing that we have up to now discussed these two stakeholders. The other two or three stakeholders were there. For example, like packaging material manufacturers, the user, and perhaps the resin manufacturer or the paper manufacturer or the glue manufacturer. Sometimes they also need to be involved into the entire process when you are talking about innovation.
I think I'll take the call with that. I wanted to change the topic before, but I think people were too engrossed in what we were talking about. You mentioned that there should be a platform where you people could go over and get information on the inputs that you would require. Now, I think it's the other way around. If there is no dearth of talent in this company, in this country, we have people who are very innovative, but they are small in size, and they have no way they can reach you, the right people who are going to encourage them, decide, or maybe help them produce products that you would need. You know, all they can do is go on your websites, and 99% of the time they cannot even find an email address, and they just get a form there. They would probably end up filling it, and that's the end of the story. Some of them who could afford to come to the shows, yes, they could come there and exhibit, and it depends on whether you are there at that time or not. It's just a chance that they have to take, and they have to put in a lot of money. They are small now, they could become big, but how do they come to you? So they also need a platform. I think the onus is also on you to create something on your website where people who innovate, and they can put their innovations onto your site, and you create a database for yourself, and you have the platform within your companies.
I think it's a very good suggestion. Whatever we are trying to achieve, I think you have taken at least the first step and suggested something. Any last question from audience, because our time is coming to an end.
Okay. My name is Kishore Bhutani. I represent a company called Rogatech. Excuse me for sharing my point of view, because I'm relatively learning the way of doing business in India. I'm new here, but I spent about 22 years in packaging. And my real experience I want to share is that I worked actually in a very different environment. I closely worked with 36 different nationalities in about 25 countries very closely. One thing I noticed here in our country, and I'm proud that I'm talking about our country here, with a lot of big companies where the project ownership from the procurement to the completion lies with many different departments. When we talk about the procurement department, the engineering, the maintenance stage, the finance capital people, etc. Quite often there is very poor integration of whole working process. I experience with many large companies where I myself go and like to meet people. We talk about the technology which offers, for example, aligning the vision process of the company as well. We talk about, for example, safety is very important for our companies, energy saving is very important, flexibility is very important, compatibility is important, modularity is important. We talk about all these things. Probably we have a possibility to also convince to the project and maintenance engineering team. Everything goes through, and finally when you face the procurement situation, completely changes. We have another proposal here, which is 40% cheaper than you or 30% cheaper than you, and then you don't talk anything about those features or benefits we talk about. Now here, I'm sorry to ask, but I'm sitting on the other side of the chair as a supplier. What do we do? Do I compromise on everything else and say, okay, yes, I could also manage those price and offer you something, but then we can't do it. Now, when we talk about as a partner, and I want to share also my experience, because in my previous job, I worked as a key account director for Nestle, and we have a great team of Nestle people here, so I want to share that. Specifically, one of the good thing I noticed about that they had an excellent team of people involved in all this process. So it was not only decided most of the time based only on price, and people could not override the specification, which might be happening with many other organizations here as well, but it's not happening with all of them for sure. So somehow backward part within the companies, if only KPI is not important. I understand finance is very important, return on investment is very important. No business can be done if it doesn't make financial sense. But it should not happen that, for example, KPI of a procurement guy is to bring all the project cost 20% down than budgeted, then he gets probably 1% extra bonus or something like that. Then I think everything else is put aside. And I'm sorry to say, but it's painful experience I'm saying. And then all the work we talk about, innovation, development, flexibility, modularity, compatibility, energy saving is left aside. So I think as an organization leaders, many of Samir, I have a great experience working with you and your team. I think they're doing a great job. But in many companies, you miss that. And if this can be done, I think as a country, we can benefit a lot. Because then people are not afraid to go and talk openly to the different department and not afraid to lose business. Because finally, all innovations we talk about, all development we talk about, return on investment we talk about, it's all money about. And quite often people tell me, Mr. Bhutani, you are leaving the country, India is a very cost-conscious country. I have an absolutely different opinion. We are not cost-conscious. Quite often we do not know how to calculate the cost. We do not calculate operational efficiencies. We do not talk about the rework we do. We do not calculate about every single aspect which makes the total cost. And one of the gentlemen talked about cost of ownership. I think when we work towards together of these aspects of total cost of ownership, final package cost or final overall productivity, we can be very, very attractive. Only thing missing is, I think, how can we put all these things together where everybody is fairly shared. A lot of big companies have a vision, or even in values they say we treat supplier also as important as our customers. But quite often it stays on the paper as well. So if we can also be given some respect, people do listen to us, people do talk about, all these criteria. I think that some of my gentlemen, colleagues talked about also can play a very important role. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think certain important questions has come up. I am sure right now if you ask me, I don't have answers because I have been party along with you to some of the things which happened. But you have seen on the user industry side also, there is far more acceptance of this situation at least. Earlier which was, that was not there. There are some very good suggestions of writing FAT specifications, performance specifications very clearly will solve some of the problems. When we went abroad and saw how our parent companies work actually in those countries, that has taught us a lot. Today, I can tell you, FAT signing off is must. Without that, we don't allow any machine to be shipped. So naturally, the other departments also become aware that now everything is fixed. We have to deliver as per that. The non-uniformities do start coming down. At the same time, on supplier side, I think suppliers also need to understand that unfair competition is not good. So if OEM can take care of such things, that will be one invitation from our side. Also, we have talked about the creation of a forum. So I think we have discussed most of the issues. I am sure a solution won't come here in this meeting right now. But let us have some time, think over this, and perhaps a similar gathering, we might present some solution.